In this review video, I'm going to be looking at three recent 4K UHD disc releases, the first of which is Sam Peckinpah's classic Cross of Iron. The second will be Roman Polanski's, what started really the modern psychological horror thriller, Rosemary's Baby from 1968. And then finally, Paul Newman in Cool Hand Luke, a film that brought George Kennedy a Best Supporting Actor Oscar. And what a classic film. How wonderful to see all of these three in such wonderful 4K quality. Sam Peckinpah's Cross of Iron. This is a war film with a difference for the time it was made. It was made in 1976, I believe it got released in 1977. It stars James Coburn, Maximilian Schell, who had won an Oscar by then, and has supporting actors James Mason and David Warner. I think they were only on the shoot for a few weeks, but the others, I think it was another of the Sam Peckinpah's typical shoot until I'm finished. And in the end, he'd run so over budget, so over time, the producer had constantly run out of money. He had completely run out of money by the end, and he turned up a few days before filming was to finish and shut it down on the spot. And they had to wrap up the ending quickly. They managed to pull it off. It's a clever ending. The whole film's clever. And the reason this didn't do particularly well in America is because Cross of Iron is from the German soldier's perspective. It's a fairly unique look at the war being told from the Russian front as the Germans are retreating. It's quite violent, I suppose, in sort of fashion of several of Sam Peckinpah's previous films, most notably The Wild Bunch, and it did generate a new look at how to do a war film, and I think that set the course, set the path for the sort of war brutality we see in films today. It also stars Santa Berger, and there are a few other ladies in this, so there's a bit of nudity, a bit of sexual violence, which some people may find a bit difficult to get through. That was the only awkward part that I found, but overall a classic film. And I found that I knew a lot of what was coming, or a lot of how it was made, because Cinema Retro, with Mike Siegel authoring, had actually done two extensive parts in recent magazines, and so I'd read a lot of this, and it turned out that Mike Siegel was one of the producers of this 4K UHD Blu-ray, and I think initially it was done for imprint in Australia, where on the extras disc in that pack, the second Blu-ray, I believe they've done a transfer, a complete transfer of Mike Siegel's personal 35mm print of this film, and they've called it Grindhouse. You do see extracts in the making of extra on here, which has got a few marks on it, a few scratches, and so they've transferred that exactly as is to put on the second Blu-ray disc, as you would have seen it in the 1970s apparently. I never saw that many films with that many scratches on it, but it looks nice. It looks like a very nice print and a good representation actually of what we see on the 4K master in here, and also the Blu-ray, which in itself is exceptional. It's just, once again, after you've seen the 4K, you really can't accept any less. So I think it's a very good 4K release. I got it in HMV for £22.99. It might be a bit cheaper some places now, but I saw it on the shelf finally, and it was a reminder that it was one of those films I should have bought, and I was very much looking forward to seeing, thanks to Cinema Retro magazine, which comes out 3 times a year, so once every 4 months. I'll leave a link to their website in the description below if you're interested in classic movies. The next one is Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby. Now, I saw this only once before, a television broadcast, I think in 1980, might have been 1979, 1981. But the interesting thing is, although I didn't particularly like the film when I must have been about 15 when I saw it on the television, I never forgot it. There were several scenes I never forgot, some of them quite obscure scenes, but once you've seen Rosemary's Baby, if you haven't seen it, then you're not going to forget the ending. You know, is it in her mind? Has it all happened? And it just leaves you thinking about it. And so a very powerful film, very well made, has a bit of a strange opening to it, where you've just got this la 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 song, And I was thinking, is that Mia Farrow singing? I think it may be, but at the end of it, it sort of more makes sense. You go out the way you came in a way, and it really does make you feel like you've just seen a great film. Although not an awful lot has happened, other than a lot of great photography, a lot of great framing of the frame, and a lot of great acting. A good story, but some people, if you're expecting something like The Omen, The Exorcist, and a lot of what came later, you could be disappointed. But I think it's a very good film, and it's got its place in history. Now, there's one thing that does perhaps mar both these films, and in fact the third one as well perhaps, is that there are quite a few soft focus shots in them. You know, the close-ups of the faces where you've got a narrow depth of field, they're trying to get just the face in focus, and quite often that goes slightly awry. And it's interesting that Trevor from Double Bill Movies and I, when we did our joint video recently, which is on Trevor's channel, all about the recent James Cameron release, True Lies, I think there are quite a few soft focus scenes in that, and where there's been a lot of reprocessing work done, Trevor and I have spoken about this afterwards, those shots where the faces go all sort of strange, are they soft focus shots? So at some point one of us has got to compare the 4K to a previous release to see if that does concur, if they match up, and that could be why some of the scenes in it look pretty awful and the rest of it looks pretty good. So I digress there for a moment, but I think that might be an important factor why some of this AI work or whatever it is, where they reprocess a film that they want to try and make look like Tenet that never did look like Tenet, just look pretty good, why sometimes they look a bit fake and we get a bit disappointed with them. Now, both of the first two films are 1:8:5:1 presentations. The third one is 2.40:1 or 2:35:1. It's just an approximation in here because I just mask them off, and like most cinemas you get a bit of cut off because you want a perfectly black frame around the image. Now, Cool Hand Luke was one that when it first came out a lot of people were asking me to review, and as much as I wanted to see it again, I couldn't get up the enthusiasm until it was in the 2 for £30 sale. But what a treat to see this film in such great quality, just like the other two, but with a 2.40:1 frame, the wide screen and the masking fully open in here. A real treat to see Cool Hand Luke, just as you would if you saw it in a cinema on a master print. I never saw this in a cinema, only ever saw it on a television, and I never forgot the egg eating sequence. Who could really? But this is a film where not much really happens. Paul Newman is caught cutting the heads off parking meters. Who can blame him, really? But we don't see him sentenced in court or anything, but he turns up at prison, bit of an open prison. He's going to work in a chain gang for a 2-year sentence, and we just follow his adventures in there and his cool character as he gains the respect of his fellow inmates, in particular George Kennedy, who, as I said, won a Best Supporting Actor Oscar. There's not much that goes on in it, but you really do get behind the characters. There's a great supporting cast, including Harry Dean Stanton, quite a few others, Strother Martin as the prison captain, the governor, and it's just wonderful to see it on this 4K disc. The Blu-ray in this is, well, it looks to me like it's an older Blu-ray. It's very good in isolation, but after you've seen the 4K, it looks poor. That's true of a lot of 4K Blu-ray releases where the older Blu-ray is in the pack and not one done from the new 4K master, and I think that's the case with this. Different menu systems, in fact there's not actually a proper menu on the Blu-ray, so it looks like quite an old one. But the sound is mono as it is on Rosemary's Baby, but of the three, Cross of Iron as a stereo track. Can't really remember much about the sound on any of these other than I was sat there enjoying the films. In each case the 4K is superior to the Blu-ray, so if you love any of these films or you're interested in any of these films, then the 4K is the way to go. But if you're in Australia, I do think you've got the option of a slightly enhanced imprint release of Cross of Iron, not just the studio canal. I suppose any of us could import it directly from imprint, who always have a nice advert on the back of Cinema Retro, so that's possibly another route to go down if you really like this film. But all three are very good 4K releases, and if you're interested in any of these, in each of the packs the 4K discs are superior to their Blu-ray counterparts, so if you are interested in any of these films, that is the way to go. What a treat to be able to watch these older films in such great quality. Whoever would have thought this would happen with home video? Whoever would have thought home video would become as good as it has on 4K and to a certain extent on Blu-ray? What a time to be a movie enthusiast. And so there we are. I think that brings us to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing so I'll be encouraged to carry on creating similar content to this in the future. Until the next video, bye bye for now.